The Gospel of Mark, chapter 8, verse 27 through verse 33. And Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they told him, "John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." And he strictly charged them to tell no one about him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." Just who is Jesus? What was he all about? What was he trying to do? What was he trying to say? Those questions dominate the Gospel of Mark. The things you see, the things you read, they make you wonder. Just what was going on with this Jesus? What was he trying to communicate to his followers? What is he trying to communicate to us? These encounters, these little moments, these snapshots that we see, they highlight some reactions, some moments where some of the followers of Jesus, they were answering that question for themselves, or because Jesus asked them. What I love about these two moments, the fact that they're right next to each other, the fact that Jesus is asking his disciples what people's reaction to him is. These guys have been following him for a while now. They've started to get a sense of what he's all about. They're starting to put together the pieces. And he asks them point blank, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter, I love Peter. He's always very upfront. He's very quick to answer. He's kind of stubborn. He's kind of a knucklehead. That's why I like him. He's like me. And he responds immediately. And he says, "You are the Christ." He makes a bold statement, a bold proclamation about Jesus' identity. Something that is so spot on. He hit the nail on the head. He maybe doesn't even realize how clear he has gotten it. But he says it. You are the Christ. And Jesus tells him not to tell anybody, that he's found this incredible truth. But Jesus tells him, sit on that. And right after that, Jesus tells them more about who he is. They've had this revelation that he is the anointed one, the Messiah, the one who's been sent by God. And then he tells them more about what that means. That it means he is going to have to die. And Peter's reaction, again, Peter, that snap, that guy who's quick to respond, he jumps in and he tells him, no, that's wrong. And Jesus, this guy who just affirmed in the truth of who Jesus is, boldly proclaiming with his mouth that Jesus is the Christ, this incredibly true, incredibly powerful and important statement, Jesus corrects him and rebukes him. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." Someone who so clearly understood who Jesus was, at the same time has so clearly missed it. Like the next breath, the very next paragraph, someone whose mouth voiced incredible truth about Jesus' identity is now being rebuked for the same mistrust and wrong words coming out of his mouth. Do you ever get frustrated where you feel like you're understanding things, or you feel like you're growing in your faith, and then all of a sudden you're humbled by your own lack of understanding, or your own sin, or your own stubbornness, or just like, why am I still dealing with this? What I love about Peter is that, as I said, I'm just like him. This sinful, simple person who's following Jesus can get it so true. And yet at the same time, he's still struggling to figure this all out. He's so human. And Jesus rebukes him, but he very clearly still loves this man. He still cares for him. He still wants to be connected with him. And I think that's an important encouragement that we can use in our brokenness and our own struggles as we walk through following Jesus. But the story doesn't end there. The story continues. The Gospel of Mark, chapter 8, verse 34 through verse 38, and chapter 9, verse 1 through verse 13. And calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed, when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." And he said to them, "Truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God, after it has come with power." And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His clothes became radiant, intensely white, as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them with Elijah, with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." For he did not know what to say, for they were terrified. And a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." And suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them, but Jesus alone. And as they were coming down the mountain, he charged them to tell no one what they had seen, until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what this rising from the dead might mean. And they asked him, "Why do the scribes say that first Elijah must come?" And he said to them, "Elijah does come first to restore all things. And how is it is written of the Son of Man that he should suffer many things and be treated with contempt? But I tell you that Elijah has come, and they did to him whatever they pleased, as it is written of him." I love how these next 2 stories are also put right next to each other, where Jesus is explaining what it means for the Son of Man. He uses that phrase. It's a very humbling phrase. It's describing himself. It's special language that's pointing to someone who would come, who would be the culmination, the second Adam, the one who would be able to fix everything, part of God's rescue plan. But it's a very humble designation as well. And he says that the Son of Man must die, that he must suffer, and that those who follow after him also need to humble themselves, to take up their cross. It's a very humble position that he puts himself in. And right after that, he takes these 3 guys, Peter, James, and John, and they go up on the hill, and they see Jesus glorified. Just as he's made this big point of talking about how following him means dying, that he is going to have to die. And then they see him in this glowing, beautiful, like you try to picture it, and it was probably unbelievable. You would probably be in awe, surprised at what it looks like. It's probably bigger and more incredible than you can imagine. And they experience him in this place. They get to see this picture of the Son of Man, this humble servant, who is also the Son of God, who is the very glory of God made real so that we can understand and see. Just who is Jesus? That's the big question of this whole section. And how do we respond to the truth of who Jesus is? Do we respond in love and gratitude for the humble servant who would come to die, to serve, and who calls us to do the same? Are we struck with awe at the Son of God, the very glory of God made tangible and real so that we can know God? How do we respond to who Jesus is? My prayer is that we would be moved by his humility and that we would worship him because of the awe that he is deserving of, because of how marvelous and wonderful he is. That's my prayer and my hope as we respond to that question of who is Jesus and what does that mean for us? I'll see y'all next week.